We're talking Ball State, Don Shondell and Ray McCallum talking Ball State, Nate Davis and Bonzi Wells, Schumann, Bell Tower and Worthen, fans all over from Muncie to Berlin, getting Concannons, Carters and Greeks. All right, everyone out there in Cardinal land, welcome to another live edition of Ball State of the Union, your number one Ball State football podcast. By the fans, for the fans. We're talking current headlines, exclusive interviews with Cardinal athletes and coaches, and fun off-the-wall debates you won't hear anywhere else. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow us on all of your favorite social media platforms. And as always, remember, when you hear that song, you know we're about to be doing one thing and one thing only. We're about to be talking Ball State. All right, everyone. John, Collin from Ball State Football Talk, and Ball State football legend, Willie Snead. We are here live tonight. Sunday night, I know we usually do our Sunday recap early in the morning, but I was at the game in UConn yesterday, so I was flying back. So everyone, thank you for joining us tonight instead of this morning. We really appreciate it. Again, we are live right now. So we are live on YouTube. We are live on Twitter, and we are live on Facebook right now. So if you have any questions for me, for Collin, for Willie, for anything, questions, comments, anything you want to get off your chest, put them in the chats wherever you're watching the show, and we will read them all at the end of the show today. So before we jump into all things Ball State and UConn from yesterday, as always, Ball State of the Union is partnering with the Shop Indy. That's www.theshopindy.com. Use that code BSUnion at checkout, and you will get free shipping on your order. And they have everything from Ball State to the Pacers to my 3-0 Indianapolis Colts. The Indiana Fever, they got stuff for there. They're moving on in the playoffs. They get all kinds of stuff. Be sure to check it out. And we've seen all these shirts now for a few weeks. But, guys, I wanted to show you actually real quick. They have just announced, I believe yesterday, they tagged me on Instagram on this. I wanted to show you guys. They got some new hats they dropped. They're pretty sweet, I think. We got Dancing Charlie there for you, Collin. I like that throwback ball U black hat with the red bill. So the shop's always throwing out new stuff. Willie, I don't know if you're much of a hat guy, but do any of these hats right here, do they speak to you at all?
I like the old school ball U, like you said. That's kind of like when I was around for sure. I like the red billing too.
Yeah, I love the two-tone. Collin, what about Dancing Charlie there for you?
Yeah, the Dancing Charlie's nice. What's the bottom right? What is the bottom right hat if you clicked on that?
That one's just like an old school looking, like maybe like from the
Okay.
90s type Ball State hat there. It's
Yeah,
pretty sweet.
I
So
kind of like that too.
if anyone out there likes any of these, again, use that code BSUnion at checkout and you'll get free shipping on that order. So enough business. Let's get into the ball, guys. All right. Ball State, unfortunately, the comeback falls short in East Hartford yesterday at UConn. Ball State loses to UConn 31-25. They made it interesting late. You know, they kind of were fighting. They were in it, dropped down 14, get back to 7. They couldn't quite ever get past that 7-point deficit late in the game. They did cut it down to 6 right at the end of the game. But some key stat leaders, and then I want to get some takeaways from the two of you here. Kyle Kelly, 17-24, 209 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Quay Ashley, 18 carries, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. And Donovan Hamilton led the way with 7 catches and 61 yards. So, Willie, I'll start with you. What's one major takeaway from the game yesterday, whether it being something you saw yesterday, maybe something they improved on, maybe something they got worse on, or maybe something you think you see in the future based on what you saw yesterday? What's one of your major takeaways from the game yesterday?
I think one of the major takeaways for me was just the fight I got to see out of Ball State. You know, the game was televised, so I really got to see most of the game. And I just saw the ups and downs of the game, and I saw the resiliency, the effort, the will to want to get that win for Ball State. So that was encouraging to see just the fight in the guys. You know, we got to clean up the little things. I think there was a lot of explosive runs in the second half, and we kind of fell short offensively on a couple drives that got stalled out. But I think just the will to win, you know, the energy was there. I think the team had the right mindset going into the game just to win the game. It just came down to a couple plays, and they fell short. But I really like the way Ball State competed, and I think they could really grow off of that.
Yeah, Collin, I know you're watching the game as well. What's kind of a main takeaway from yesterday for you?
Yeah, I probably would have went competing too, but I think Willie summarized that pretty well. So I'll go with something I was really worried about that was cleaned up a lot, and I'll say special teams looked a lot better. Now, there's going to be other takeaways, but for just one right now, I'm just glad that's fixed because in the future it could hurt us, and actually looked pretty good that game.
Yeah, the main takeaway for me was, and this will tell you how close I think this game ended up to being where Ball State had a chance to win, is we had so many opportunities on defense to get off the field on third and fourth down and really stop these UConn drives from getting going. We had 3rd and 14 that we gave up. I think UConn scored one of their touchdowns late on a 4th and 1. Chances to get off the field to stop UConn drives and get the ball back for us was something that it seemed like we struggled with yesterday. And if we can figure out a way to get off the field in those scenarios, we're going to have a lot more possessions and a lot more chances to win games in the future. It's something I took away. And those are the main things sitting there watching it was like, all right, we got a 3rd down, 3rd and 9 right here. Okay, perfect. Let's get off the field. Gave it up. And does that lead to, a UConn field goal? Does it lead down to UConn touchdown? It just seemed like we couldn't get off the field in those key spots yesterday. Yeah, and that kind of ended up biting us at the end. So that's kind of my main takeaway. One more thing before we jump into the offense, Willie. As someone who's seen and been around a lot of football games, I wanted to run one scenario by you from the very end of the game. I don't know if many people picked up on it, but it's something that I picked up on sitting in the stands. And if you guys didn't see, I was damn near on the field yesterday. I was about to be having to field kicks for us based on where I was sitting. But all right, so Willie, we go down. We're about to score. We're right down there in the red zone, waiting to score. We're down by 13 at this point. We have 3 timeouts left. To me, in that scenario, why would we not be calling those timeouts knowing that we're going to have to basically get an onside kick and we're going to need as much time as we can to have? So we basically went into that onside kick situation with 9 seconds left and 3 timeouts in our pocket. Is there a reason in your mind why we wouldn't have taken those timeouts earlier in that last drive to conserve as much time if we did recover that onside kick?
To be honest, I think it's just more situational, depending on what coach saw out there. You never want to. I've always heard this. You never want to end the game with timeouts in your pocket. So maybe there could have been some situational stuff where he called a timeout to save some time, or it's just all situational. It depends. It varies game to game. But if I know what you're talking about, the last drive, I think maybe he just didn't think about the clock as much. Maybe they thought they were going to score faster than they thought, and just the clock got away from them. That's called kind of about like clock management. You know what I'm saying? That's stuff that you have to practice and drill throughout the week, kind of just to get a feel for that, because you can lose track of time real easy. Especially if the ball's in play and it's not a first down or whatever the case may be. So it's kind of tricky to speak on that, but I think it's just more, John, like situational. Every situation is different. It's something that they're probably going to study going forward, because that's not going to be one thing that they're not going to experience again. They're definitely going to see that again, that situational time, and just to be able to take advantage of it next time, because it might come up against Ohio where they're doing a 2-minute drive at the end of the game. They got to score. They got to leave time on the clock just in case. But I mean, honestly, it's really on the coach and just how he sees it and how he calls it at the end of the day.
Yeah, I got you. Because I was there with some people and I was thinking, I was like, man, even if we do recover this onside kick, there's 9 seconds left. There's not a lot of time to really get anything done there.
Right.
But yeah, so Collin, let's jump into the offense. We'll start with Collin this week. Seemed like we had Kyle Kelly's best passing performance of the season, I think by far. Made some throws when we had to. Had a couple drops or some timely drops. Collin, where do you want to start offensive wise? What stood out to you the most yesterday?
Yeah, well, who stood out the most to me, John, was definitely Donovan Hamilton. And I believe on the last recap that we had, guys, I brought him up and said he popped. And I didn't even know who he was before last week. So I was really excited to see us using him more. He was huge. Keon Magwood was huge yesterday, guys. A friend of the show. We had a play that like Kyle threw to him to get us into that almost red zone-ish area where we then kind of worked down the field and Kyle dumped it off to him, but then got the pass back for the touchdown. That was the coolest play of the game, and it was such a ballsy call by Coach U because it was fourth down. It was fourth down. And he dialed that up. We got the touchdown on it. So that was huge. I liked the play calling for the most part on offense, guys. Donovan Hamilton, of course. I'm trying to think what else. Kyle Kelly looked pretty good. Adam Saul was a legitimate weapon in that first half. He had a punt that was downed on the 7-yard line that didn't even need to be stopped by a player. It just died on the 7 right there. So that was great to see. Like we said, special teams. Yeah, I thought Kyle Kelly looked comfortable first half. The second half obviously was a little bit different. We did have a big Eric Weatherly run in that second half. I was glad to see them using him. Ty Robinson. I love Ty Robinson, but we cannot have that drop. That drop hit him in the hands, and it was, and this is coming off the drop last week. That wasn't as big of a drop. I think it was only like a 10-yard, but another one that hit him in the hands. And we really need him because he's like our biggest wide receiver. 6'2", 6'4", somewhere in there. There's nobody really close to him in that size other than Donovan Hamilton, who's popped recently. But yeah, that kind of hurt to see. But Donovan Hamilton had a back-to-back grab. It was like a 20-yard grab. Then we went right back to him, another 7-yard grab. So I was happy to see that. Quay Ashley had a touchdown. I don't know. What about you, Willie? What did you think about the offense?
I thought the offense was good. I think the first half was better than the second half, obviously. I would have loved to see some drives to keep going in the second half so they can continue to build momentum because there was a couple times where the drives just stalled out and they really couldn't get anything going. That's where special teams played a big part of flipping the field and kind of making it hard for UConn to drive down the field. Definitely loved that they were able to attack the perimeter on a lot of occasions in the passing game. Because that's something I wanted to see them build on was just continuing to build that chemistry with the outside guys. Magwood got going on that screen in the first half. That was huge. And then throwing the touchdown to Kyle Kelly, that was pretty dope. I feel you on the Ty Robinson. He's got that was a second half play. He's got to catch that big bomb. That puts them like inside the 10. I think that's a huge momentum play. That's just something they got to continue to work on, during the week. They got 2 weeks now to prepare for Ohio. They should feel fresh. Their chemistry should be, tighter than ever. And Kyle should be feeling really good just about his playmakers on the outside. Because, like you said, Donovan Hamilton, Magwood, Weatherly, Ty Robinson when he gets going. Then you got Quay Ashley out of the backfield. Like that's enough weapons to get you going. And then with the run game, I love the way the run game was going. Ashley got 86, Kyle got 50, and then TJ Horton, which I really do want to see more of Horton, have 41 yards on 6 carries. So if they can just continue to feed the beast up front, which is the run game, it'll obviously open up lanes on the outside, big lanes for Kyle Kelly to throw to. And I want to continue to see them build on the screen game. We got some athletes on the outside. You just got to get them the ball in space and let them do their thing. So I liked what they did on offense. They built on last week. It was a tough, close game. I know there's going to be situations where, there's going to be third down plays that we got to have. If we want to keep drives alive and continue to push the envelope as an offense, we got to capitalize on those third down plays. But yeah, Kyle Kelly just kind of keep building on it, man. One interception, 4 sacks. Really protected the ball well for the most part. I can't remember the pick. When did the pick happen? Was it a tips and overthrows or?
So it happened basically right in front of me. Yeah, it was down at he had a guy open like kind of inside the numbers at the 20-yard line, and then he had another guy on the sideline with like a couple people on him, kind of still around the 20-yard line, and he kind of missed that guy that was open inside the numbers and kind of went to the sideline. There's just a couple guys over there and
hit the long throw. I got you.
So, Willie, I had a question. What do you attribute? Because I think we all can agree this was by far, in my opinion, the best passing performance that we've had this year. Do you think is that something that we saw because of what UConn was doing is just further development from Ball State's offense? Where do you kind of stand on what you saw yesterday and maybe why we saw that step up in the passing attack?
I think it just goes to the week of preparation that these guys are having. It's all about timing. I keep saying that each week. Like, if we want to see the passing game continue to grow, these guys got to take the time to put it in during the week after practice and really work on the timing. Because the more reps Kyle Kelly gets with those receivers, he won't blink in the game. And I think that's where we got to see a little bit more this week of the coaches trusting the passing game and really getting the playmakers the ball in space on the outside. Because I mean, if teams are going to give our guys free access and not press, we got to take advantage of that. We got playmakers. They just got to be able to take advantage and eat up that cushion at the same time. So I really thought it was just a week of preparation for them. I continue to see each week them get better and better. And I think, like you said, John, this was the best week passing wise, where guys were just involved. You got Hamilton for 7 catches, Magwood for 2, Weatherly for 2, Gross for 2. You know what I'm saying? And then Quay's got 3 catches. So it's Kyle just getting the ball out, getting the ball to everybody in space, and kind of just stretching that defense out to start hitting the run game again.
Collin, do you have anything else on the offense before we kind of start transitioning over the defensive side of the ball?
Sorry, John, it's breaking up.
Oh, sorry. I said, do you have anything else on the offense before we kind of transition over to the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, real quick. One of the things I noticed that was really promising about the offense as well was the 2-minute drill that we had at the end of the fourth quarter. Kyle Kelly really operated that quite well. I mean, we got a touchdown from it, and Willie touched on this a little bit about the timeouts. You can't go and end the game and have timeouts in your pocket. There's an opportunity before the 2-minute warning to take a timeout that maybe would have left like 2:10 to run a play before the 2-minute warning, but we just let it run down. And then I was like, okay, now we're going to use the 3 timeouts. But there was just, if we're like, guys, we love Coach U, or I love Coach U, he's a friend of the show, but I wouldn't be doing my job correctly if I didn't point out there was timeout mismanagement in that game. And it was blatantly obvious because, like John said, when we went to go kick the onside kick, there's only 9 seconds left, and we still had like 2 timeouts or something like that.
I think we might
And they
have
did
3,
end up
honestly.
putting like another 2 seconds on there, but just how that happened shouldn't have happened because they were able to put their guy back there and just take 3 kneels. And then we got our guys looking silly trying to hit him because we didn't manage the timeouts correctly and got a flag or whatever it was at the end of the game.
Yeah, I had a take about that scenario actually, and Willie, I'd like to hear your thoughts on this, and I promise we'll move on to the defense. But I think I mean, I understand what UConn's quarterback was doing. There was like 11 seconds left. He's trying to run as much time off as he can.
Yeah.
If you're doing that though, you're kind of free game to get hit if you're trying to do that. And so then them getting all bent out of shape and then them throwing the flag on the next play is like, I'm okay with that penalty in that scenario, because if you're going to take the knee and get down. If you start trying to get cute and trying to run off time, then you're kind of free game, in my opinion. Am I off? Is that like a player code of conduct, like an unwritten rule, like, hey, if you're going to take a knee and get down, or how does that work, Willie?
Yeah, that's just the defense playing 60 minutes. It's like the game's not over. This guy's trying to be cute, like you said, and they're going to rush the football until it's called down. And that speaks volumes to the character of the team. I could tell how bad they wanted this win. Just how they fought through the adversity. The defense. We'll talk about the defense, but they gave up some explosive runs at the end, but they still fought. They still continued to grind it out, and even to the kneels. It's like that flag is just a kind of a tone setter. It's just like, y'all got away with this one. It's just like, I can't. It's like frustration at the same time. So I don't have a problem with it either, John. I mean, I think it's just one of those things where it's just like, don't try us, don't get cute, kneel the ball in the game. All right. But at the end of the day, it's like they could mess up the kneel. I just saw Josh Allen like the other night. It looked like he kneeled, but it looked like he didn't. So I think sometimes these quarterbacks kind of take that for granted, and you, as a defense, you always gotta be ready, because you never know. He'll drop the snap, he'll fumble the snap or whatever, and next thing you know, you're diving on the football with 7 seconds left. So I think it's always a good move by defenses, like just to finish the game, finish 60 minutes, put pressure on them. And if they want to retaliate, like those guys was ready, man. They're not finna back down to UConn. And I love to see that. I think that was where I got most out of it, was just the grit that Ball State showed on Saturday.
Okay. All right, we'll jump right into the defense now. And before we jump in, though, anyone listening out there, if you have any questions, comments about the game, about Ball State football in general, about anything really, put them in the comments or the chat wherever you're watching the show, and we will read them at the end of the show. So, defense. One thing that we've been relying on big time this whole year was this defensive line, its ability to stop the run, and the ability to generate sacks. But we did not see a lot of either of those. 0 sacks generated for Ball State. Not even just the defensive line, but the defense in general. They gave up 226 rushing yards and 194 yards to Cam Edwards for UConn. So, Collin, we'll start with you. What did you see out of the defense? Obviously, not as good against the run game. Did a lot better against the passing game than I think most of us thought.
Yeah.
Where do you kind of fall on the defensive performance yesterday?
That's where I was about to go first, John, because one of our main weaknesses was really the secondary. And here in the first half, we only allowed something like 84 yards passing in the first half. So I thought the pass defense looked really good first half. Our front seven even got after Fagnano a little bit, made it interesting. It was really just that third and fourth quarter that I felt was a lot more sloppy. We had some penalties like roughing the passer that pretty much gave them a new set of downs just so they could score. We had pretty much stopped them. That was on third down. So it was just penalties were really like it wasn't that there was like a ton of them, but when we did get them, it was super costly and it hurt us bad. I don't know, did we really have any sacks? Like I want to give the
0.
defense credit, but John, when they go 5 of 5 on fourth down, it's like it's kind of tough, and they're almost there, but it's just they didn't finish it. So mixed bag.
Okay. Willie, what did you see from the defense yesterday?
I saw the defense let two people beat them, Cam Edwards and Skylar Bell. Skylar Bell had 14 catches for 113 and a touchdown. 14 catches.
That's a lot.
14. That's a lot. And then I think Cam Edwards really got going in the second half with those two explosive runs, one for 42 and then another one was like for 67. If you eliminate those two runs, he has less than 50 yards. You know what I mean? So I thought it was a solid performance by the defense. They didn't let the quarterback blow them up over the top. He didn't even throw for 200. He threw for 181. I thought it was a solid performance, but I thought we got bit in the ass at the end of the game when we started hitting the holes on the backside with the linebackers. I think the linebacker play could have been a whole lot better. Just with this way this team wanted to attack us, they wanted to run the football. Cam Edwards is going to be an NFL running back. Okay, let's just make that clear. But the linebacker play had to be better because the defensive front, the front four, I thought were solid. Even though they didn't get any sacks, they really didn't give up any real explosive runs until the end. But the linebacker play has to be better. They got to scrape over the top better. They got to be able to read gaps better and hit it hard. But at the same time, they got to be able to be better than hitting the backside of the gaps and letting that stretch. Because all they were doing is wide zone, and they were stretching it, and then they hit it, and he's gone. There was nobody there. So I think the linebacker play really had to be better. The DBs, I think they could have game planned better a little bit to get Skylar Bell to let somebody else beat them instead of him. I think he just had too many opportunities to catch the football, especially on the first drive. Like, he got going real early, and after that, they were just kind of just finding different ways to get Skylar Bell open. But other than that, I think outside of those two guys, I think the defense played solid. It's just those couple moments in the second half where they just let them break loose. And that's kind of like what separated. That was the difference in the end, because if you eliminate those two explosive runs at the end of the game, I think Ball State is able to find a way to pull this out. But it's hard to do that when you're letting running backs run for 40, 60-yard touchdowns. That'll be hard for anybody to beat.
Yeah, Collin, I know has a point about linebackers, but I want to ask you one more question about that, Willie. So these big plays that happen late in the game, what do you attribute that to? Is that a conditioning thing? Is that just like hey, UConn's got good players too. It's good players making good plays. When you see these big plays kind of come more late in the game, how does that come about?
I think fatigue can play, a role in it. I think, lack of preparation can play a role in it. I think a lack of hesitation, possibly, just guessing or not being sure about what they're seeing, like trusting your eyes, so to speak. There's so many components that go into it, but I think the one component that you have to have is you got to have those instincts to be able to hit it and go. Trust what you see and go. And that goes to preparation, that goes to your workouts, everything that builds up to that moment. You know what I'm saying? So, it's hard to say because they were doing a hell of a job stopping them. Like, those guys wanted to run the ball, and that, like I said, that running back is gonna be in the NFL next year or in the 2 years. That's how he was running the football. You know what I'm saying? So I think it just comes down to just continuing to prepare, continuing to trust what you see, and then going to get it, man. Because there was just a couple opportunities where we had them, man. We had them, and it just got by, got into the second level, and it was adios after that.
I was gonna say, yeah, and Will, you know this just as well as anybody. There's always a handful of plays that end up deciding the game, and just it's
Yeah,
whoever takes advantage of those opportunities when they present themselves are the ones who end up with the wins on
that's
Saturdays.
right.
So,
Hmm.
Colin, I know you had something about linebacker play. I didn't forget about
Yeah.
you. What do you have about the linebackers?
Real quick, I want to touch on what you said. It was a handful of plays that really lost us that game. John, it was 5, and they
Hmm.
were all on 4th down. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And they scored multiple times on 4th down. So, and then also moving to what Willie said about if you go onto UConn football's Twitter right now and you go to their highlight plays where they tweeted their touchdowns, if it wasn't a pass, they were all outside runs. To what Willie was saying, they were all outside runs. Now, I had a response on the linebacker play because Willie said, like, our linebackers got to play a little bit better than that. And I'm in agreement. But if you remember last week, we reap what we sow.
Hmm.
Joey Stemler got kicked out of the game last week and then had to miss a first half. And then Caden Smoke Johnson, who's another big linebacker for us, was out the whole game. So we
Right.
were pretty thin at that position. And John, I don't know, did Borski get any play time in the first half? I would be interested in that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. Uh, Mr. Borski, if you're watching, let us know. But yeah, on the linebacker play in general, like it was just down. It was just down, but like we were so thin at that position, we couldn't get
Yeah.
people to switch in. There was a bunch of it. So I just had that, John. That was my thought on the linebacker play.
Okay. And one last thing with the defense, and then we can kind of move on to special teams, which I think shouldn't be a super long segment. But I did get a comment yesterday during the game that I believe they were double teaming Nathan Voorhees. I don't know if either of you guys noticed that, but that says a lot for him as a player if people are going out of their way to double team him, week 4 of the year. And it was a big, game for him, former UConn Husky himself. So I know he would have liked to have got a sack or got a little bit more involved on the stat sheet, but that's a big time tip of your hat to a player like him saying, hey, you know what? We might get beat somewhere else, but we're not going to let you beat us. And that's like kind of what Willie was talking about with Skylar Bell was it would have been nice if we would have said, hey, you know what? If someone else beats us, okay, but it's not going to be you. And that's kind of what they said to Nathan Voorhees yesterday. They said, you know what? You can wreak havoc on a game and we're not going to let it happen. So that's
Right.
another thing I kind of noticed throughout the game.
John, if
Defensively,
that's true, it's on the rest of the D line to make him pay for doing that, though.
for
You
sure.
know, like
For sure. Yeah, Willie, what happens if, let's say, did you play with Michael Thomas in New Orleans?
Yes.
All right. So if they double team Michael Thomas and they leave you 1-on-1, what are you going to do to him?
Oh, we got to win, baby.
Yeah.
7-11.
Yeah, that's right.
Stay open.
So yeah, it's all about taking what the defense or offense gives you and taking advantage in your own way.
And speaking on the linebacker play again, John, it's like, and Colin makes a great point. The experience of the linebackers was really shown. We didn't have a lot of depth there, and some of the guys that we kind of relied on weren't in there. And, that makes a difference sometimes, just that inexperience of, like I said, not trusting your eyes, not seeing it enough to read and recognize and go. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that's what it is for a linebacker is reading it and going and just trusting it. And if they do play action, you got somebody behind you ready to go. But I think Colin mentioned that, and that's true. It's just the inexperience that was at the linebacker play. It kind of played an effect in the game in the end.
John, that's why I was wondering if Borski played. His dad is a friend of the show,
yeah,
and
I
he's a
don't.
freshman, a true freshman. I was
Mhm.
wondering if he actually got any PT because I know we got Jack B or BB. He's
Mhm.
like a senior, and then Weigold as well. I think he's a senior as well, but there's still a whole other position there where there's no Caden Smoke Johnson to put in. Joey Stemler's out of half. Like, who did we put in? Like, I'm not even sure 100%, John. So
Mhm.
you're right, Willie. There was somebody that was getting reps there that probably had never really gotten reps.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see Lucas on the stat sheet anywhere.
Mhm.
He might have gotten in. I'm not sure, but I don't see him on there, and I didn't really notice it at the game. I'll be honest. I might have had a couple libations pregame, so my breakdown of the film in the first half was maybe not the best, but I don't see him on the stat sheet anywhere. So who knows? I know he was there. I know he was at the game, but I'm not positive. So okay, we'll jump into special teams real quick. I don't have a ton of notes on special teams other than it was a whole lot better than last week. I know one of my 3 chirps was we need to have a clean special teams game. I said we don't have to score a touchdown. We don't have to force a turnover, but we just need to not lose the game on special teams. And I think that is exactly what happened. Did you, either of you, Willie, did you have anything you noticed special teams wise? Or was it kind of just like hey, this was the phase that we didn't really have to focus on because nothing too crazy happened today?
Yeah, we just needed to make sure special teams didn't play a factor in losing the game, because that was almost the instance last week. So that was a positive already. The punting game was pretty good, flipping the field like that a few times, hit the field goals when we needed to, caught the ball well in the punt return and kick return game. They still like to put Quay Ashley back there at kickoff return. Not my favorite, but I'm not the coach, so we'll see if that pays off in the end. But I thought it was solid from special teams. Guys were running fast. Guys, not too many explosives for UConn in the special teams game. So it's pretty solid overall. Just got to continue to build and maybe got to get a takeaway at some point on special teams. Some kind of takeaway just to flip the favor in our. It's gonna come up soon at some point in the season. A big game. Special teams going to play a big role, and that's the part I can't wait to see.
Yeah, Collin. So for what I'm seeing here, Carson Homer 1 for 1 on field goal, 2 for 2
Yep.
on extra points. I know you were a little cautious about the kicking game early of the year. Has Carson Homer really been able to kind of get you to take a deep breath, a sigh of relief, say, okay, these kicks are going through now?
He has. I think his seat has cooled a little bit. I was just enamored by the fact that other people were saying we had an FCS All-American on the bench. And while that's still true, as long as this kicker is hitting his kicks, you're not going to hear a peep from me.
All right. Anything else on special teams out of you?
No, that was really it. I mean, I thought it was clean. We hit the kicks we had to hit. Nothing bad, nothing disastrous happened. I mean, it'd be nice to hope for something good to happen, but we were at the point where it was just like, just don't lose us the game, like Willie was saying. And they did that. So, I mean, give them a B and, just hope for better in MAC play.
Okay. All right. We introduced this segment last week, and now we have the official name. This is our Lead with Snead section here of the show. So I have a couple questions for Willie about his time, about what he learned as a leader at Ball State and how he would be a leader on the team today in some of these certain scenarios. So, Willie, my first question for you is, we dropped a tough one yesterday. I think a game that Cardinal fans, Cardinal players, Cardinal coaches think we could have won.
Yeah.
How do you get people back on track after dropping a game like that?
Kind of just watch the film and kind of just look at the good and the bad. Learn. It's good after a game like this to have a week off. Kind of just because it's been a tough 4 weeks. We played Auburn, Purdue, one FCS school that's pretty tough, and then you got UConn here, and it's been a tough 4 weeks. And I think the guys obviously would have loved to be 2-2, to see a better record than 1-3. But I think now it's like a whole new season starts. MAC play is like a whole new season, and they get a week off to really get their mind right, get their body right, and kind of just study and get better this week. So I would be encouraged with the film because one, it wasn't a blowout. Two, it was really, really close. Like I said before, I think special teams could have played a big role, whether it was explosive run or a turnover. Those are the type of games you want to see the special teams come to life. But I think there was a lot of things that they can grow off of on this tape. And to play a team like UConn tough at home should be really encouraging in itself. Just kind of let the guys know it's like, all right, we're like 1 or 2 plays away from being great. You know what I'm saying? Doing great things. And they should be encouraged. They didn't have too many mental errors. They didn't have too many situations where it was just like they lost it. We got to be better on fourth down. That's going to be something that teams are going to look at and be like, defense can't hold for 4 downs. They got them in 3, but can they get them in 4? That's going to be tested more as the season goes on. But one thing I would just tell the guys is just continue to grind, continue to keep your head down and work because, Ohio's coming to town, the MAC champs, and, they're trying to put their foot on our neck in the shoe. So that's just something they got to continue to work towards. And if anything, if the passing game is any evidence that this could get better, we should be encouraged because they went from, Auburn not having a soul throwing the football to New Hampshire getting it done in the rain, and then coming out here at UConn and really trying to sling the rock. It was encouraging to see. So one thing I want to mention is I saw Kyle Kelly. He didn't let it go, but Weatherly, he was running up the sideline on the wheel. If he had let it go, he probably would have scored a touchdown, and it's like a whole different ball game. So it's like those moments right there, you got to let it go, and that comes up to preparation, like trusting it, seeing it, doing it over and over again. So there's no hesitation, because once he hesitated and put it down, the play was over.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it comes down to those moments, John and Collin. It's just like we saw the tape. We watched the game. It was just 5 plays, maybe 5 plays, changed the game. You know what I'm saying? And that's encouraging, because the way the season started to now, I believe that Ball State's gotten a lot better. So I'm encouraged to see what they do after this bye week going into Ohio. They should be strong. They should be jumping out of their skin. And your boy is gonna be in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So it's time to show up and show out for Mac Play, baby.
That's right. We can't be going down on Willie Snead Hall of Fame Day, right?
Oh man, can't do it, dude.
I can't do it. All right. So speaking of the bye week, what do you think Ball State? If you were a leader on this Ball State team right now, what would you be preaching and focusing on? Saying, okay, we're on this bye week right now. Here's what we need. We need X, Y, and Z before that week of prep for Ohio starts. Next Sunday.
Yeah, we're hitting the conditioning, weight and conditioning tough this week. Just getting those lungs right, getting the strength right, getting the body right, and then obviously offensively, we're working on the passing game, man. We're working on the timing, route running, getting Kyle Kelly, just throwing reps at him, whether it's plays, routes, just creating that timing, creating that connection with his targets out there, so it feels like second nature on game day. So I think that's how we attack the week, is really just emphasizing the weight room, really trying to take care of the bodies, get conditioning in, because it's gonna be a long Mac play. It's a tough year for Mac play. You can't really tell who's gonna be in it until the end. So it's up in the air for everybody. So I think if they're smart this week and they really take care of their bodies and really work on the timing with the offense, I think going into my Ohio, they'll feel really good just about the game plan. It gives coaches 2 weeks to prepare too. That's something that we take for granted. Is just when you give good coaches time to prepare for one team, they normally bring out their best stuff. So I'll be interested to see what the coaching staff cooks up for Ohio with 2 weeks to prepare for them.
All right, and my last one here. So for you as an athlete, a student athlete, we'll take you back to Ball State here. How hard is it to keep your schedule and keep your making sure your routine is the same during a bye week? Obviously, it's still pretty early in the year, so these guys are still getting used to their classes, getting used to everything. How hard is it for a bye week to keep focused, even though you're not playing a game?
I think it just you got to shift your focus onto something else. Like you got to shift your focus from playing the game to taking care of your body, or put more time in your school hours. Something like that, just to keep the routine the same, but fill in the gaps where they need to be filled. I wouldn't say too much downtime is a bad thing. Keeping guys off their feet. Resting. Getting treatment, all that stuff. It could be a distraction sometimes. Sometimes it could throw guys all the way off. When you give them a week or two off, but I don't believe this coaching staff is going to have them just doing nothing. I think there's going to be a lot of time of them watching film right after they lift, or there's going to be practices where it's just going to be 7-on-7, or there'll be practice where it's just conditioning. I think that's all predicated on the coaches and how they decide to, orchestrate the schedule during the week. But I plan for them to have a weekend off and really just watch college football and just watch, how everybody else plays. That's something I did when I was in college. Is I watched what everybody else was doing. I saw what guys were doing, how they ran routes, how their offenses look, how teams looked and responded to adversity. That's beneficial in itself. That's just all watching the game and learning from other guys. So if they really want to take advantage of this, everything I said is true, and I think everybody's different at the same time, right? So I think it just all predicates on the coaching staff and how they put their week together to kind of get the most out of it and be ready to go jumping out their skin Ohio week.
All right. That's our Lead with Snead segment. If anyone else has any questions for Mr. Willie Snead here, this is your last chance. Questions for Willie, questions for me and Collin, questions about life in general. Get them in the chat now, because we have one more segment to go before we get to our listener questions and comments, and that is the Pulse of Cardinal Nation with Ball State Football Talk,
Ooh.
Collin.
Ooh, John, can we postpone the polls? I gotta read the polls. Like, I haven't actually had time to do that and feel the wins yet. But I do have some stuff to fill in for this real quick. 3 things we didn't talk about, John.
Okay.
One, and I think this was a coaching error. And I didn't even think about it until I saw D Hill, one of my favorite follows on Twitter, tweeted right at the end of the second half, we missed an opportunity to be aggressive at the end of the second half to try to get some points there. And then I kind of saw it, and I didn't know if I agreed with it. I don't really know that I did agree with it in the moment. I just think we were trying to keep the ball away from UConn. But it turns out at the end of the game, D Hill was exactly right. If we had tried to get those points at the end of the second half, because we had the ball, that could have been a completely different game because they couldn't stop our 2-minute offense, and they haven't been able to stop anybody's 2-minute offense the whole year. So that was one thing I wanted to point out because we talked about the mismanagement of the timeouts, but the lack of aggression at the end of the second half was huge. Another thing, Willie kind of touched on this a little bit, but like going into MAC play, Toledo just lost to Western Michigan 14-13. I know this is Ball State of the Union, but stay with me. This is going to be a year where the MAC champs can legitimately be 6-2 in the MAC, 5-3 maybe. So we can't be down like, and look, I want to beat Ohio more than anybody. Like I want to beat Ohio, but we can't. If we lose Ohio in a tight game, these are one of the dogs of the MAC, like maybe the best team in the MAC right now. We can't be down on ourselves so hard that we keep going down into this like abyss of thinking like, all right, we're not going to be anything this year. Like they're going to be the best team we play in the MAC all year. And I think that's how I was feeling at the beginning of the season. I'm thinking that right now too, because Toledo lost. Miami Ohio has 11 new starters on offense. So we got to keep our heads up after that. But the last thing I noticed from this game, John, and you wouldn't have noticed it because you were there, Willie. I'm so tired of CBS Sports. I am so tired of CBS Sports. John, I could not watch the game until 3 minutes and 30 seconds left in the first quarter. When I turned on the game, UConn was throwing a touchdown. I had to watch North Texas versus Army, who I literally did not care about, but it went into overtime. It is what it is, but I would understand, like, okay, they're trying to show the end of the game, this and that. But I have the app, John. The app had Ball State, UConn right there. I would click on it, and this is what really got me hot, John. It wasn't just that it was nothing, and it was just a loading screen. They would play an ad or two, and then give me the spinning wheel. CBS Sports, I'm watching you guys. I don't want to be watching you guys. You guys are terrible. So that was it, John. Those are the 3 things we didn't talk about yet.
Let me take a look here at something real quick before we go on. I have one interesting story I heard today about last night, and then we'll get on to the listener questions. So again, if anyone out there is listening, get your questions now because we're going to be going into them here in just a second. I was trying to see, Collin, unfortunately, I guess you'll be at the game, but the next game, Ohio, CBS Sports Network. So it's going to be out there.
Yeah,
but you two will be marked safe from CBS Sports Network. I'll be in the middle of the ocean, so I guess I'll be marked safe as well. So Ball State of the Union is marked safe from CBS Sports Network for the next game against Ohio. So I had an interesting thing I heard this morning, actually. I got up to a text, and it said that apparently for Ball State football yesterday, they left UConn, they went to the airport, and they were delayed like 4 hours or something crazy like that. And then they sent them back to the hotel, and they didn't even fly out until this morning. Willie, you're shaking your head right now. What are your thoughts when you hear that?
That is the worst feeling in the world after a tough loss. Because I've been in there before where you're sitting on the plane for 3 hours after a game, and you're just like wondering, why aren't we moving yet? And it's not like I remember when I was in college, we flew to Virginia. Like, it's tight. It's tight on those planes. And it's like, I do not want to be on this plane right now. And do they even know why it was delayed and why they couldn't get out?
I didn't hear. I just heard that they were delayed for about 4 hours yesterday. And it was a 3:30 game anyway, so they're in a little bit later to begin with. But then they had to go back to hotel. I don't know how you even get a hotel for that many people on that short of notice. I don't really know if it's like something predetermined in the contract. You say, hey, you have to hold these for us. But yeah, that was crazy. I heard, yeah, they didn't leave till this morning. I was flying back, and the person who was talking to me, I think, maybe about like 1:20 or 1:30 or something, they sent me a text and said they just finally landed. So horrible travel day. I hate that for them. Collin, I don't take it that you probably handle delays for flights very well.
No, but John, after that flight delay, we're not going to get a new uniform for like 5 years for the new hotel bills. That's going to hit us hard. So
somebody broke the
that really
bag
is a
open.
bummer.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's get into some listener questions, comments, and we'll get everyone out of here. So our first one comes from our new friend. I think he became a follower during the UNH week. He said, John, I saw you stopped at Polar Park for a Woo Sox game. Hope you enjoyed your time. Yeah, I had a grand old time this whole week up there. I had a mini sports weekend up there in the Northeast on, I believe, Thursday. I went to Springfield, Massachusetts. I went to the Basketball Hall of Fame. I sent Willie some pictures. Willie's a big Kobe Bryant fan, so they had a big Kobe Bryant display there. They have a full court basketball court, guys, and so I was trying to show off to everyone, being from Indiana, that they that I could really hoop. And I'm gonna be honest, my first probably 15 to 20 shots, they were bad, but thankfully no one is there. Now I will say my next probably 30 or 40 shots, NBA 3-point range, I was like Steph Curry. I could not miss. So I got off to a horrible start, but I really picked it up later on. So I did that. Then on Friday, I went to the Worcester Red Sox game, the Woo Sox, as he's saying, in Polar Park in Worcester, Massachusetts, a AAA team for the Boston Red Sox. And then yesterday I was at the game. I was tailgating all day and went to the game. So yeah, 3 days, 3 big sports things. The only thing I missed was, apparently, I didn't know this, in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is, we were staying basically right there, is the home of Dr. Seuss. So there was all kinds of Dr. Seuss stuff there. There was a Dr. Seuss museum. Had I known that, I would have went. And are either of you fans of a green guy by the name of the Grinch?
Oh, yeah.
My kids love the Grinch.
So guess what? The Grinch, where he lives, the mountain, Mount Crumpet, is apparently this mountain right there. It's called Mount Tom. So I saw the Grinch's mountain this weekend, basically. So big weekend up there in the Northeast for me. So there we go. Enough about me talking about the Grinch. All right, so here comes from someone over on YouTube, Bluish Banter, I believe is his name. How many of the big runs do you think were a play calling issue? So I assume he means the big runs we gave up, so a defensive play calling issue maybe. Willie, I know we kind of touched on it a little bit, but do you think it was we were calling the wrong plays against what UConn was running, or was it just, again, UConn just made a better play than we did?
Yeah, I think UConn just made the better play. They were running wide zone. Our linebackers are a step behind. And if anybody knows anything about wide zone, if linebackers are slow, if you get that outside shoulder, you are gone. Like, watch Christian McCaffrey, watch any zone running backs that run. It's like one hole after another. You hit that wide zone, then you go A, B, C, all the way back to D. And that's the way it's supposed to be run. I mean, we were running it too. We were running some wide zone with Quay Ashley, and he was hitting some lanes. And I think it's just all about how instinctive the linebackers are, how fast they flow over the top and get downhill, filling those gaps. Like we mentioned earlier, Collin, said that, there might have been some inexperienced guys that, might have not have played a lot of football in those big environments like that. And sometimes that makes a difference. Just hesitating 1 inch or one step, that makes a difference. So I don't know if it was much play calling issue, more than just reading and running by our linebackers.
Collin, you're a coach as well. Is that kind of where you're coming from as well? What do you think there?
Yeah, I mean, I saw a couple of the plays on like Twitter, and I was thinking about like breaking down the film, but this is a side rant. I'm gonna get back, but we don't post our plays on no post game press conference either, John. We
Oh,
got to
no.
talk about that. I'm hot.
Oh, no.
But first of all, I looked at the stuff on UConn football's Twitter page, and it looks like when they post the plays, we are loading the box. And it looks like we have people outside too. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they just found the hole and literally hit it. I don't think it was play calling on the long runs because they have like 2 guys out. Looks like press on the side here, or no, yeah, like they had people in the right places. I don't think it was that. just whatever. One of these run plays, we literally had like 8 people in the box, guys. Like the 4th and 1 touchdown when it was
Yeah.
Ball State 10, UConn 17. We were loading that box. They just made it happen. They just made it happen.
All right, we got Gerard here on YouTube. He's got a handful of comments here, so we'll kind of get through those real quick. So we're talking about Nathan Voorhees getting double teamed. He said Nathan was double teamed most of the game. Plays were basically ran away from him. Willie, there's not every day that you have defenders on your team who people are actively avoiding. You look at the NFL, you got your TJ Watts, your Myles Garrett's, those top of the line players. Does that say more about Nathan Voorhees that people have that respect for him already?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, whenever you got people chipping you, double teaming you, trying to run away from you, that's just a huge credit to that player just being disruptive and making plays on defense. So, Nathan just has to make sure he doesn't get frustrated with that because sometimes that can be frustrating. But it's a testament to his hard work and how he's done in the season so far.
Yeah, Collin, I know you've been high on wanting to have. Oh, what you got here?
This play that I'm looking at right now, the touchdown I just spoke about, he's exactly right. They ran the ball away from Nathan Voorhees on this touchdown here. So he might be onto something, John.
Mm-hmm. So Gerard also has here, we're talking about their travel woes. He said they left at about 11 a.m. this morning, so that would kind of line up. That sucks. And then he has one more thing on it. He said they were allowed to get off the plane at 11:30 p.m. and go to the airport hotel. Willie, I know you'd be hot. You'd be hot as hell with that.
One, I'll be mad that I'm not getting to go home, but I guess the other side of the pillow is that you went on the plane at 2 a.m., going to the hotel at 3 a.m., waking up for a 7 a.m. to go home at 9 a.m. That could have been a lot worse. So at least they were at the hotel by midnight. And I think, for the guys, it's just more like just, oh, all right, well, we in bed, we in the hotel, we chilling, right? So, I mean, there's always a hot and cold side to a pillow.
Collin, if you were stuck on the plane all night, how long would you have talked to this guy right here?
Oh, what a legend, man! As long as he would have talked to me, I would have talked to him.
I'll say it was great. I was able to run into them after this was this was before we knew they were going to have a crazy travel night. But Willie, I don't know if you had a chance to meet this, but this is our great friend of the show, Chris Radican. He's the radio analyst with Mick Tidrow for all the Ball State football games. But he's great. We might maybe we'll have him on this week with the bye week or something like that. I haven't fully fleshed out the schedule this week, but Chris Radican, absolute legend. So I was happy to be able to chat with him for a couple minutes after the game. So Chris, if you're watching out there, appreciate everything you do for us, and it was good to be able to see you. So, all right, I think that is about the end of our listener questions and comments here. Collin has something.
I got one more thing, John. It just sparked in me when we brought it up. Like, first of all, you see how they post these plays? It's like from the view that you would see on the TV. Like you literally have little TV line here, whatnot, with the scores and whatnot. Why, when we play other schools, do their posts look like that? But ours are like ground level with like a shaky cam. Kyle Kelly's cutting out the picture. Then they gotta like get it back in. That's a small thing, right? And for the most part, Ball State media has done a really, really, really good job this year. So let me preface it with that. But do not start with there's just no post-game press conference. Like they told me that because they called me up, we chatted, so whatever. But some of these places apparently do not have a place where you can do a post-game press conference, right, Willie?
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, some of these, I don't know how that works, but like Buffalo, apparently, like, what was the game that Mike New got fired on, John?
Buffalo.
What was it?
Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo didn't have a post-game press conference area for Mike New to talk to the press after the game that he was going to get fired about. So I was hot. And then they told me, okay, some places don't have that. Am I to expect that UConn does not have that, John?
I don't know. I mean, with smartphones nowadays, it seems like you could do it on a bus, you could do it anywhere. So it seems like they're all pretty much, over the. Yeah. So Willie, I guess
send them a StreamYard link and do it ourselves. You know what I mean? Like,
Willie, I guess that's an interesting question for you here before we get out. So as a player who, has to answer questions from the media afterwards, Is that something that you think that should be happening in college football? Like people should be answering questions after the game where the coach and I'm sure Coach you did. I know he talks with Mick and with Coach with Chris Radican after the game. Is that something that you think fans like have a right to hear after the game, or is it like we come here, we coach, we play, and then we go home? What do you think?
I think coaches definitely should do some type of post game interview just to kind of get that instant reaction that the fans and the media are looking for. It's hard to create a narrative when you don't talk to people that are really the ones calling the game. But players, on the other hand, I think they should give at least 2 days to kind of let it breathe and hit
Hmm.
them on a Monday or Tuesday with the media. That's just my opinion. But they've been doing post game interviews with players and coaches for as long as I can remember. So I think there's just some places where they just don't have, I mean, it's not like the NFL, right, Colin? It's not like you have this whole thing set up for the away locker room. Some teams away locker rooms are just like shacks, like
Hmm.
Oklahoma's deal was like a shack. Like it was terrible. Like there was no post game place to do. It's
Hmm.
like there was a bathroom, there was a couple lockers, and there was a training room. That was it. There was nowhere else. So I guess every stadium is different. The optics are different everywhere. But we just gotta have some patience. You're gonna get your post game interview sometime during this week. They got 2 weeks to talk about it.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's just coaches definitely should do that instant reaction to the game, whether you win or lose. It's kind of just get it off your chest, give the media what they need, give the fans what they want to hear, and kind of just move on.
One last question, then we'll kind of wrap it up. But in your time as a player, whether it be Ball State, whether it's the Saints, with the Ravens, with any team you put in the NFL, did you ever hear any crazy interactions post game between a reporter and a player or a coach?
Nah, not instant reaction. No, I never had to deal with that. I know Michael Crabtree did not like talking to the media. Like he was against it. Like he would get changed so fast. Like when we got into the locker room after the game, he would be the first one in the locker room. By the time everybody was in the locker room, this man was already showered and putting his pants on and everything. So by the time Harbs broke down after the game, he was deuces out the hole. So like, there's some guys that just do not like talking to the media. Like they make that conservative effort to stay out of their face. But I've never had to deal with any type of like, altercations or like, things with the media where it's just like, oh wow, that's gonna be crazy. But it's always been cool. You got some media instigators out there, but most of the media is cool. They're just looking for a story. They're not really trying to poke the bear, so to speak. They just want to do their job. They want to write stories, but you gotta watch some of them because some of them just really be trying to like stretch the truth
Hmm.
and make something out of nothing. Those are the ones you gotta watch out for.
It's funny you mentioned that actually, because in my time with the Colts, which shout out my 3-0 Indianapolis Colts, but when I was
Mm.
when I was working with the Colts, they would put the players would write on the whiteboards in the locker room, "Hey, this guy from this newspaper, be careful with him. This guy from this newspaper is cool. This guy, we're not talking to this guy right now because he said X, Y, and Z." So they do. It is funny that you guys do talk, and everyone knows who to kind of keep an eye on throughout like the media landscape in whatever city that you're in.
Because
Um,
they're like in the locker room all week too. Like
mhm.
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, like right after or before practice, like the media is in there for like a good 30, 40 minutes. So it's like you see these people every day, they interact with you in some way. They're like standing in the middle of the locker room while guys are getting changed, guys are getting undressed. It's like it's crazy how much access the media has. So it's like I know it's not like that in college, but
Mhm.
media, they can either be your friend, but you don't want to be their enemy.
For sure.
Put it that way.
All right, let's get out of here, Colin. Any last takeaways before we jump off?
No, pretty much. I mean, Willie's the angel on my shoulder. I was pretty hot about the, press conference all last night. I'm like, no post game press conference, no post game. I literally texted her. I'm like, no, like it's 1 a.m. Where's the post game press conference? Nothing. I'm gonna let it slide. Willie's like, it's a real thing. So I'll just be happy with what I can get. I'll have to watch the Together episode again, but yeah, my final thoughts. Make sure to subscribe. Ball State of the Union, man. make sure to be a part of the Union. We love you guys.
Willie, any last thoughts for the fans before we jump out?
Man, appreciate y'all tuning in. Let's keep pushing the envelope. Have a great week. Be positive, be cheerful, and love your family every day.
Great words. All right, so everyone out there, we will still have 2 shows this week, even though there's not a game this weekend. We're going to have a regular live show on Wednesday, to be determined what we're going to do on it, and then I'll have a pre-recorded show that I'm going to put out on Sunday. I have an idea for that with some people that I know. I think we're going to do that. So there will be 2 shows this week, just like always. And yeah, we appreciate everyone listening. That's going to wrap up the post-game edition for our UConn game for this year. Obviously, again, unfortunately, Ball State falls in this game, but that's it. Big thanks to everyone out there who watches the show. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to comment. Be sure to leave us a like. Be sure to subscribe. Tell your friends. Let's grow the Cardinal community together. Chirp, chirp, everyone out there. And we will see you all on Wednesday for something real fun and real special. See you then.